Managing just a handful of writers creating a few thousand words of content per week can be a handful. But what if you had to manage hundreds of writers creating millions of words of content every single week? Well, that's exactly what my guest today does. Vin D'Elleto runs WordAgents. They're one of the largest content agencies out there, and we've been working with them for a number of years now. And today he's going to be sharing all the juicy insights about how he runs his business. We're going to find out how much he pays for writers, how many writers he works with, how he finds them, how he keeps them, and how he trains them. So if you have a website that you create content for and you have a team of writers that you want to manage better, then pay attention because you're going to learn a lot today. Vin, welcome to the Authority Hacker podcast. How are you doing today?
Hey, Mark. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, buddy.
So I'm really excited to have you on because we talked last week about this show and about this interview. And one thing that really surprised me, like I had no idea how big your company is. So I'd like, if that's okay, just to give you a few quick fire questions so you can give our audience a sense of the scale of your content operation.
Absolutely, man. Hit me with them.
How many writers do you have on your team at this moment?
At this moment, I believe we have 234 freelance writers on the WordAgents team.
That's insane. I think that's the most I've ever heard anyone have on their team. And how many words per month would you say you produce on average?
We do, on average, I would say between 4.5 and 5 million words produced for our clients every month. And that's growing pretty quickly month over month.
It's also completely mind-blowing. And I know you guys have been around for a long time, so and you may have to do some math here, but do you have any idea how many words of content you've produced since you've been going?
Well, when we relaunched the website in April of 2020, we actually have the stat right on the About section, and we had it at 77 million words roundabouts up until that point. But over the last year, I think it's been our biggest year ever. So I'd have to do the math on that, but it's getting up there for sure.
Like it's just mind blowing, like these numbers, and that's why I'm so excited to have you on today, because I want to grill you on how you run your business and how you find so many writers and just get all that done. Sometimes I have real problems getting that done for one site, so I can't imagine how you do it for so many of your clients. So if we can just break this down. Let's start with finding writers, because I know that's a problem which every site owner can relate to, and you seem to have solved because you have so many. Where do you find writers?
Well, it's not solved yet. It's always a work in progress because writer sources change over time. So those tried and true sources that we relied on for years and years, sometimes they dry up and you got to go elsewhere. But there's always the places that we all know, Upwork. ProBlogger, I would suggest ProBlogger featured at this point. The normal ProBlogger ads just aren't as effective as they once were. You got to pay for that featured ad. Craigslist, job sites, Facebook groups. Those I think are where most affiliate marketers go to find their writers. We've gotten a little creative and kind of ventured outside and gone offline a little bit to find writers. We have agreements with colleges and universities. We go to local small business and career center type things. Probably everybody has like a business center in their city or around their city. That's a great place to find people who are talented and looking for work. And we're also touching into specialty groups like veterans, retirees, single moms. There's all kinds of organizations that support these types of groups. And lots of times they have some kind of like job board or something like that where you can actually source writers from there. And it's also, you're being a little socially conscious too by supporting maybe an underserved demographic.
Interesting. Okay. So you mentioned college students there. Do you physically go to campuses and attend careers fairs and boots on the ground kind of mode, or?
Not yet. It depends on how tough it is for us to scale in the future. But we started with the online universities. There's a good bit of alignment there because they try to place their students into digital jobs just because everything's online. So we just hit up the career center or the counselors or whatever they call it at each individual university, the organization that helps students get placed at work. And we just tell them what the deal is and give them a flat offer. And we ask for their English students and their honor students because there's something to be said about life experience with college students. So we find that the honor students and the ones that are majoring in English, have the best success rate with WordAgents.
Okay. And are you looking for students who are still studying at this point in time, or is it graduates who this goes on to become like their full-time job?
It's usually seniors. So we usually touch base with the colleges and universities towards the end of springs because that spring semester is just ending. So we're trying to grab the seniors on their way out. They're looking for summer jobs. They're looking for their first foray in the workplace, and it works out.
Okay. And do you tend to look for generalist writers, i.e. someone who can research and write about anything, or do you focus on people who have specific experiences with certain niches, for example?
Yes, and that's probably a topic that I can talk about for an entire podcast. But at WordAgents, we only work with generalist writers, and we do our best to train them up to research and basically speak intelligently on any topic. We've tested building teams of subject matter experts, and there's a lot of pitfalls you gotta look out for. And I think that's very viable for a small team. But once you get to the size of WordAgents, trying to get 200 subject matter experts in different verticals is a really tough nut to crack.
So how do you, sort of going off the hiring path a little bit here, but how do you get someone who's not a topic expert to be able to write confidently about a topic then? How do you teach them to do that?
So we have some very, very detailed operating procedures related to internet research. So we teach all of our writers about, Google special operators, the differences between an authority site, a primary source of data, and basic just research tactics like that. Which does a lot of the legwork for us. Just going to a primary source of data allows a writer to speak more intelligently than if they're going through to a news site that's kind of like, cycling through that information and not necessarily providing an accurate answer. But yeah, just through internet research and the way we teach our writers to do that, more often than not, we hit the nail on the head.
Interesting. Okay.
With that said, we also always tell clients that if it's a professional service or if it's a topic that would require a 4-year degree to speak intelligently about, that's just not the right fit for us. And that's, for a smaller team, again, I'm talking through the perspective of running WordAgents. But if you just need a few writers to support your blog, you could totally find a subject matter expert. All you got to do is go on Upwork. They're all hanging out right there. And you can, source 3, 4, 5 subject experts that you can use, consistently over time for your blog. They're just going to be a few percentage points more costly than a generalist, mainly because they have that experience behind them.
So would you say that the training someone to research well essentially enables them to write about anything or almost anything?
Yes, I would take a content marketer that knows how to research and write well over a subject matter expert. And if the topic required subject matter expertise, I would simply hire somebody with expertise to review the article and sign off on the data.
That's an interesting approach, actually, because I know from personal experience, it can be really challenging, especially in certain niches, to find subject matter experts. So that may be an interesting approach. I've always tended to shy away from hiring generalist writers in the past, but thinking about it and thinking about how I create content, like a lot of the value, I guess, is created in the research phase, and ensuring that that's done properly is super important. Okay, just go back to your actual hiring process then.
Sure.
What does it look like? Someone sends in an application. What happens next? How are you screening for good writers? What are you looking out for at that stage?
Sure. So really, aside from expertise, we're looking for goal-oriented, punctual writers with excellent spelling and grammar skills. So they just need to be able to have a really strong handle of the English language, preferably fluent. At WordAgents, we only work with North American writers. But I'm more looking for the characteristics, the character traits over the skill sets. If a writer is really interested in helping you reach your goals rather than just checking boxes on a checklist, that's the person I want to work with. Experience with internet research, content marketing, and SEO is a plus, but I'm not going to turn a candidate away if they don't have that experience, because those are things I can train them up on. But the core skills, like their character traits, are they really interested in doing the job or just getting a paycheck? That you got to weigh that. And can they write well? If they check those boxes, they pass my first test, and then we go on with the testing phase of bringing new applicants on.
And what does that look like? Do you give them all a test article to write then? Or
sure, yeah. We give every single writer a test article, and we use the same brief for all applicants. That way it makes the evaluation of those test articles much more easier for our editors. And also we don't have to kind of create a new brief for every new applicant that comes in. But they get a test article. They either pass or fail that. The ones that pass it, they get handed off to our talent manager at WordAgents. And they do another test article with the talent manager. So they have to pass our evaluation team with the first test. Then they have to pass with our talent manager. And if they pass that second test, they go into a 90-day probation period. And we're specific in letting them know that they're in probation, because there's a little bit of psychology there. That if a writer knows that they're kind of like under a magnifying glass, they're going to do put their best foot forward for that entire duration. And really, if writers are able to do that for 90 days straight, and that's a lot of projects over those 90 days, we're going to have a high confidence that they're going to be the right fit for our team for the long term.
And is there anything when you're evaluating a test article or something someone's submitted in their portfolio, even as part of the application, are there certain things you look for in their writing at that stage, or certain things you look to avoid at that stage as well?
Right. So we have an evaluation checklist, and the purpose of that is that we're evaluating candidates consistently and fairly. So it's not, across evaluators. So it's not one evaluator has this opinion and another has this opinion. We use this checklist, and then that's it. That checklist is going to be unique to your business. The items on our list are going to be different from yours just because of what we're doing. It's different. But for the most part, it's things like fluff. Are you looking for fluff writing, keyword stuffing? How powerful is the intro? Does the intro, keep you engaged and want you to read more? How is their formatting without any training? Like, how do they format and structure an article without any, previous training from WordAgents? Those are the type of things that we're looking for. And of course, we're evaluating it against our general quality assurance process. So everything's going through Grammarly, CopyScape, Hemingway editor for readability. And I think, on our checklist, we have about 22 different items, 22 different pieces of criteria that we evaluate the document against.
Okay, and so let's talk, if we can, about editors, because I'm guessing you must have quite a few editors. What's the sort of ratio of editors to writers that you guys have?
We try to keep a 1 to 10 ratio. So one editor for every 10 writers. I believe we're above that right now, because what we're doing is we're evaluating different pay structures for editors. So we're definitely over our need for editors, but that's fine. We get things done faster that way. But for the most part, editors we pay on an hourly basis. I definitely stress the hourly basis for editors. Trying to track editors on a per word basis actually adds an added cost for administration and just the management of that. And most editors in general are used to being paid on an hourly basis. So there's less friction when you're onboarding them and just trying to get them into your organization.
Does a good writer, can they also work as an editor, or is there a different set of skills that are needed?
It just comes down to, you said it, down to their character traits. We've definitely We love to promote from within. So there's definitely been writers that have become editors, and even some of those editors became our talent manager and our director of content operations. But for the most part, right now, new editors are all coming from outside the organization, just because of how much demand we have on our writers. We just have to look elsewhere because we need the writers in the seats that they're in right now.
So do you have different hiring processes? Do you look in different places, or is it the same places you mentioned? You look for writers, you look for editors as well?
Upwork is very good for editors, and job sites in general are very good for editors, mainly because the price point that those editors expect on those job sites are aligned with our budget. Whereas writers, you kind of you have a big spectrum of expectations for pay scale. So we have to be specific about where we go to find our writers. Another website that I really like for sourcing editors is called freeup.net. It's actually owned by the owner of The Hoff. And it's it's a job site, but they have this cool feature where you tell them what they're looking for, and they'll actually go and find candidates for you and give you a top 3 to 5 list of who they think would be the best fit for your role. And that's worked out very well for us, both for editors as well as other positions in the company outside of production. We hired a data analyst from FreeUp too.
Interesting. And is that mostly US based people, or is it international?
We were able to source US-based editors, but outside of that, it was worldwide. I think we have some in Norway, some in Bulgaria, all over the world.
Interesting. I haven't heard of that one before. I have to check it out, actually.
Yeah, it's solid. I like it a lot.
So how do your editors interact with your writers? What does that day-to-day interaction and feedback cycles look like?
Sure. So we have a pretty robust back-end tech stack, I guess you would say, at this point. So everything is becoming more and more automated. But for the most part, editors are our assignment. We have an assignment manager. So the assignment manager is the one doling out all the work to various editors and writers, and then it gets into production. So the writers will be the ones getting started on the work. Editors will be there throughout the entire process to answer any questions about client instructions, to clarify client instructions. And if they need to go back to the client to get further clarification, editors will do that. Other than that, they're just answering general writer questions during the production of the first draft. After that, the writer will submit the article to the editor, at which point they'll do their quality assurance work. They'll do their proofreading. They'll go, push everything through Grammarly and CopyScape in our tool stack. And the editor will make a judgment call. Is this draft, need 5 minutes or less of edits? In that case, the editor will do the changes themselves. If not, they'll jot up some revision notes and send the work back to the writer for revision, with the expectation that the revision is expected back within 24 hours. Then the editor will do their final sign-off before sending it to our quality assurance team for a final review before it gets delivered to the end user, which is the client.
And do your editors sometimes actually make the edits? If it's just little things here or there, do they always push it back to the writer in order for them to learn what they should be doing?
Our trigger point for that is really the 5-minute rule. Does this document need more or less than 5 minutes of copy editing? If it's less than 5 minutes, go ahead and do that. Maybe that's tweaks to the headers. Maybe it's just separating text so there's no blocks of text on the screen. Just very small things like that. But anything more than that, we send it back to the writers because we're paying the writers to make sure that that's correct for our clients.
Yeah, I've always struggled with that. If it's little mistakes, do you push back on do you have the editor push back on the writer and spend some time doing that in the hope that they fix it, forever in future, or is it even worth it? But I like that 5-minute rule. That's a good, I think a good number to
and just to add context there, we do have a quality assurance team, which are probably our most talented editors. And that is really our last line of defense. If an editor isn't confident that an article is delivery worthy, they have the option of sending it to that client, that quality assurance team. Then when we both have quality assurance editors and writers, and that's just like, special ops. They go in and they look at where we're at and they just polish it up and get it ready for delivery.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard a lot of larger organizations have that kind of role. I've heard like chief content quality officer and roles like this. I really think this is something important, even if you're not doing it at the scale you guys are doing it. Having someone whose ultimate responsibility is for quality across like a whole site. It's something I haven't done yet, but it's a role I've kind of thinking about, like how one could adapt that to a single site at the moment. Actually,
it's really needed for just so we can hit our guarantees related to delivery dates. We guarantee that we deliver up to 10,000 words every week. So if we're sending stuff back between editors and writers multiple times, you're really eroding away at your available time to meet your guarantee. So we just opt to send it to a quality assurance team who's ready and willing to get this done as fast as possible. And they're capable of really putting out a good product. So that's probably the main reason we have that there, just to keep the entire workflow flowing on time.
Let's talk about rates for a second, like both for editors and for writers, because in my experience, the numbers, like at least the amount these people have been asking for, seems to have been steadily going up in recent years. Which is fine, with inflation and all. I'm just wondering what your take on that is at your scale. Like, how much are you paying your writers, your editors, kind of on average?
Yeah, sure. It all comes down to what you're asking of the role, right? So if you're gonna like slam a role, and by a role I just mean like the title, the job title, with a ton of tasks, you should expect to pay a bit more. We've kind of it's a juggling act of balancing act to get those tasks right to make sure that it's good for the rate we're paying. For writers, we're paid between 2 and 3 cents per word. We're very transparent about that. It's a flat rate. We don't do tiers of writers for different quality. We always try to put out the best quality possible, and that's why our hiring system is so stringent. Because we're only going to let writers in that are capable of putting out the quality that we expect. But we're paying 2 to 3 cents for that. But that's only for production. All writers have to do are take the client instructions, read them, and write the article. We're not asking them to do anything else. Any other tasks related to creating the article are elsewhere in the production system, whether that be with the editors or the quality assurance team. Editors, we're paying on an hourly basis. It's kind of hard for me to say what rate we're paying editors because we look at all editors in total and look at that as one budget. But for the most part, we're able to source editors anywhere between $14 and $20 an hour.
Okay, yeah, that's. I guess that's like, I remember back in the day when I was starting doing authority sites, like I remember that 3 cents a word being kind of like the average, but it seems more and more these days that rate seems to be been going up at least.
There's a lot of websites out there that kind of like, I would say they're like freelance writer support websites, like how to, build your business as a sole proprietor. And they very much inject ideas into these writers' heads about what they can expect when it's not really the truth. Everybody has a different background. Everybody has a different experience set. And for the writers that we're looking for, recent college graduates, stay-at-home moms, retirees, professional freelancers looking to fill holes in their schedule, we're able to source plenty of them at the rate we're offering.
Great. So how do you get your writers up to speed with the way they're supposed to be writing content, like when they start? What training do you have in place?
It all starts with the standard operating procedures. So we have so many. Our documented systems are it's almost a library at this point. We have different SOPs for workflows, how to use our project management system, research like I talked about before, formatting and structure of articles, on-page optimization, call to actions, like really how to, if a client wants a call to action or is trying to drive something to a specific link, how to work that into the writing. So we're really developing the documentation first, And then we're testing the writers just to get a feel for their natural abilities. And then the real training starts within that 90-day probation period. The first 2 weeks, we give the writers time to internalize the documentation. Really, 2 weeks should be plenty for the amount of documents that we're giving to our writers for them to be up to speed. If they're not up to speed after the first 2 weeks, it requires a one-on-one meeting with the writer to really understand, where the knowledge gap is and try to close that. And if not, maybe a second guess of whether or not if that writer is the right fit for the team. After that 2-week initial period, they're just in probation, and we just monitor them closely and just reinforce our rules and expectations through that period. And then our talent manager also holds ongoing training in the form of pre-recorded videos. And that's something that we're actually just implementing now. We're going to do a once per month training, 1 hour long pre-recorded video, and we just blast that out to the team through our email marketing
What kind
software.
of things are going to be in on those recorded videos?
Any new tasks, any new changes to our existing SOPs, and then really just honing in on common failures. Like a lot of times, there'll just be one expectation that writers have a really hard time with. So we'll do an hour-long, session to really go through, resolving that, so it becomes, not so much of a problem from a macro point of view.
And you mentioned the SOPs earlier. What specifically would you be telling them within, say, your research SOP or one of your other SOPs? Give us some insight there.
Sure. But in the research SOP, we try to make it as action-based as possible. I try to keep every SOP to about 2 pages or less. Anything more than that, and it just becomes noise, and it's hard for the writer to internalize. For the research SOP specifically, we're talking about, as I may have alluded to before, the differences between primary and secondary sources of information. How do you properly use Google advanced search operators to kind of filter the results down to really what's important and the most useful. And then how to identify an authority-based website where you can really trust the information and data that they're presenting, compared to a fan site. And it's really all about how to suss out the good stuff from the bad stuff and really get to that as quickly as possible.
So you're essentially teaching them how to find the facts of whatever it is they're writing about versus the noise.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Okay. That's interesting. And what about the you said you had an SOP on structuring content as well. What does that look like?
So that's all the stuff that we all know as SEOs. Just everything should be structured with or broken up with headings and subheadings. And then if you want to do nested subheadings within that, keeping headings short and sweet. We don't want verbose headings that are wrapping to a second line. The same idea with paragraph structure. I actually learned that from Authority Hacker back in the day. Keep paragraphs short and sweet. Keep paragraphs focused to a single thought. We instruct our writers to keep paragraphs to 3 to 5 visual lines. And that all that means is if you're going to count the lines on the screen, it shouldn't really be more than 5 visual lines. So those are the types of instructions that we have in the formatting document.
Yeah, I like that. Avoiding the wall of text syndrome that you see on a lot of kind of old school blog posts. That's really, really important.
Yeah, and really that backs out for WordAgents. If we're able to structure our articles in a way that's going to keep our clients' visitors engaged, that keeps that client coming back to us because they're making money from that article.
Okay. So how do you physically manage so much content? I mean, do you have it all on Google Drive somewhere? Do you have some numbering system for every piece? It boggles my mind how you handle all this.
It took 2 years to get that organized, two full years and a lot of trial and error. It's just down to our tech stack. We use ActiveCampaign to communicate with the writing team, and we actually just onboarded the entire team into HR software. We're using Bamboo HR, and because we have so many bodies, a platform like that was really necessary for communication. Then we have our project management software. We're using Service Provider Pro, which was a project management system that was as close as possible to our workflow that we could find out of the box. We did some further customizations to that to really build an assembly line for our workflow in the back end, which really helped management of all these orders. But as far as deliverables, it's just in Google Drive. We have client folders, and then within client folders, there's project folders, and within the project folders, there is the actual documents. So the client will get delivered the actual project folder that includes all their documents within the project.
And do you give each of your writers an @WordAgents G Suite or Google email account?
No, that would be very, very expensive. We give that to our higher level management. And do editors have them now? No, editors don't even have them now. It's just high level management. Basically, any of our staff that will have would be client interfacing.
So do you have like a Google Drive with like one WordAgents content folder that you own, and you just invite the writers into the relevant parts there?
We split it up. So we have a production side and deliverer side, because we don't want clients will always have access to the deliverable side. So we don't want them seeing articles that are in production. We did that for a while, and I started getting emails, nonstop about clients making critiques before the article was delivered to them. So we do everything in a production folder first, and then it gets moved over to the deliverable folder once it's ready for the client to see.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. We came across a really weird problem recently, where I think on Google Drive, you can't change ownership of a file, like if it's someone outside your organization who created it. So I was wondering how you solved that.
We just resolved that. You have to do that. You have to set up groups in your G Suite. So you have to do a writer group, and then you could set the permission just to the writer group instead of the individual article owner. So it's really your G Suite organization owns the groups. So it doesn't matter if people come, it doesn't matter who's sitting in the seat. It's the group that owns it, not the individual.
Brilliant. I love it. So tell me about your tech stack as well for the sort of tools. I mean, do you use CopyScape? You mentioned Grammarly and some other tools. What are you using consistently there?
Sure. We're using all different types of software just for the business in general. But when it comes to content production, everything sits on Service Provider Pro. So that's our workflow to keep everything moving nicely. For most people operating websites and teams for a specific website, Service Provider Pro wouldn't be an option. In that case, I would suggest Asana or Trello. I think ClickUp is a newer one that's really good too. So I would suggest those. For proofreading, spelling, grammar, and just general editing, Grammarly is great. It doesn't get you 100% of the way there. At WordAgents, our guarantee is we guarantee every article will reach a score of 90% or better on Grammarly. And then we have manual checks after that.
Do you aim for a specific readability score with it as well? Like grade level?
Readability is a tough one, because what's happening with readability is we are testing that, and we will do that for clients that ask for it. But when you pass it through a readability tool and you kind of try to edit like that, the article becomes very robotic, and it takes a lot more time to get it flowing well in the readability tool. So that's something that isn't part of our service guarantee as of yet, but we're working on working that into our service guarantee. But we just have to kind of overcome the amount of time it takes to edit for readability. But I very much promote Hemingway Editor for readability. It's probably the standard, I would say, at this point for that.
So do you use both Grammarly and Hemingway always, or does it just one or the other?
Hemingway only, like when we have certain clients that are really specific about readability, and we'll use Hemingway in that case. But for the most part, on the majority of orders, it's just Grammarly, and then we use CopyScape too to check for duplicate content.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would say that's it. And then just if you have a really big team, I would so recommend an HR platform. And for us, since everybody on our team is a contractor, we use Bamboo HR. So far, it's been really nice, and it's great for communication, blasting out, communications and memos to the entire team really easy. And it also makes onboarding easy, getting everybody to sign their contracts and submit all that kind of stuff too. But I would say that's it as far as tech stack. Project management system, Grammarly, CopyScape, Hemingway editor, and then an HR platform.
And do you use, do you do any kind of on-page optimization? Like, do you look at like including keywords? Do you use tools like Surfer SEO or anything similar to kind of add keywords to content there?
Sure. So WordAgents is an SEO company. We specialize in SEO optimization at scale. I have an internal best practices guide for on-page optimization that is actually available for download on the WordAgents website. We give away for free too. So if you guys want to take a look at what we teach our writers, you guys can visit us and download it. But it's, we update that.
We'll put a link to that at the corner of the YouTube video.
Yeah, I got to get that for you for sure. We update our best practices, I'd say once per quarter. So it's just all the standard stuff that we all know. Keyword density, using keywords in the first and last paragraph, try to use secondary keywords and headings wherever possible. A lot of the formatting stuff that we talked about previously is also within our on-page optimization guide. Outbound linking, internal linking. It's the whole gamut of what's necessary to optimize content to rank well for your keyword.
Okay, and I hear you've used some kind of interesting automation to help you manage this whole process. Like, how do you use automation in your business? Like, is it simple Zapier tasks, or do you use anything more sort of complex?
Sure. To be honest, my team is just at this point, they do automations that I don't even know that it's going on right now. It's awesome as you kind of grow. Like, you have teammates that just do this stuff for you. But the biggest one we did is we created an app that sits on top of Service Provider Pro. As I said before, Service Provider Pro was really close to our workflow, but it wasn't perfect. And one of the drawbacks was the assignments. We have hundreds upon hundreds of new orders every week, and we were manually assigning that to editors and writers for every article. So we built an app that sits on top of Service Provider Pro that allows that to be automated. It allows the writers to claim articles at their leisure rather than waiting for our team to assign an article to them. So that actually sped up our entire process significantly, and it cut down on costs because we didn't have to pay like extra labor to actually just understand, train them on different types of articles and what should go where. We just created an app that does that automatically for us. And then beyond that, Zapier is a godsend. It connects all of our tech stack together so everything speaks together. And we use Zapier to automate a few Google Sheets that we're still using for data purposes.
So if you were to start your agency again today, let's say it was a blank slate, what would you do differently?
I would niche down more. When I first started WordAgents, I wouldn't call us an agency any longer. We're definitely a productized service now. But as an agency,
built a platform recently, right?
Yeah, the platform is Service Provider Pro. We just customize the heck out of it for our needs. So we're kind of sitting somewhere between a SaaS and an agency, and the term for that is productized service. But as an agency, you should totally niche down. We made the mistake of trying to do content for everyone. And I did well, but I didn't sleep. I had to hustle all the time because I had to go get that next client, that next payday to keep, money in my pocket, but also keep all my team flush with more work to do. If you niche down and you focus on a specific industry, it's gonna become much easier to land clients because your marketing materials you'll be able to focus on that one vertical, and also you'll get a lot of referral business because people will say, "Oh, this guy did so great for my my law firm practice or my dentistry practice or what have you," and guys that are in the industry have other buddies in the industry, and they'll refer you, and you get a lot of referral business that way. So niching down is my number one tip for agency owners getting started.
And where do you see content creation in general going in the future? Are we going towards more sort of high end, high quality, or is there still a quantity argument to be made?
It depends on where you're at in the life cycle of your website. Like when it's a new website, it's going to be quantity based. You got to get up all those core documents and really just develop your topical authority within the niche you're in. But after you kind of reach that baseline, then it flips to a quality type of deal. Then you have your readership, and you just want to put out the best quality content that's going to engage with your readership consistently. You're no longer worried about building articles around all the keywords in the vertical. You're now worried about providing value to your readership to maintain them and also grow that readership over time. So I think there's always going to be a market for the quantity-based stuff. I think we kind of, at WordAgents, we kind of straddle both of those things. One kind of wrinkle that popped up recently that we weren't expecting is the advent of the AI content creator. Everything on GPT-3 that's being developed right now. I would relate that to kind of the quality of writing that an overseas writer would put out. If you hired somebody from the Philippines or India, you more or less are getting the same kind of quality from the AI writers right now. And it's going to require like some human interaction to polish up. So that's something we're looking into. We're potentially going to launch an AI content product along with our human written product as well down the line. I don't quite know how that's going to pan out, but we're keeping an eye on it, and we're just going to take it in stride as it comes.
Can you see a day where all content is written by AI?
It's tough, man. I've always said that you're never gonna get the same insight out of a machine, than that you would out of a human being. But you get a lot of really smart cookies out there that are learning how to develop this stuff and getting it up to speed. AI content, I really see that for almost like ad lib style content that you're just kind of plugging information into. I know it's used heavily in like stock quotes and stock prospectuses where, that can be automated very easily. News updates, things like that. But things where you need a good level of insight to really connect with your audience and pass value to your audience, I think that's a good 5 years away. I may be putting my foot in my mouth saying that, but my opinion is that it's, we got a little bit of time before the technology gets there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think it's going to come along and just, today everyone, you have 200 writers, tomorrow it's just AI is doing everything. I think it's more a gradual kind of change. At least I've been playing around with some of these tools, and they definitely don't replace a writer yet. Right. But they can help a writer, overcome writer's block, or help you just get started with like a new section or like finish up something. It's quite clever the way it's constructed. I think just people need to learn how to use it a little bit more.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's not going to be this wholesale change where like one day you use human labor and the next day you're using AI. It's going to be similar to like how all these optimization tools just hit the market over the past 2 years. You have Surfer, Market News, ClearScope. Those didn't replace competitive analysis. Those just made it easier, and it's just another tool in your tool stack to develop content. And I think AI content is more or less going to be the same deal. We're just kind of learning how that's going to play out at this point.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on the AI content product, because I've been doing some experiments myself. I have a YouTube video coming out fairly soon where I'm like comparing content from text broker to AI, and it's some really interesting results actually. So
right now I think the AI content stuff is really good for copywriting. I know there's a few specific tools out there that are great for like headlines. If you do Facebook advertising, it's working really well for that because it's trained for that. So that's a good use case for it. But for, full length, long form blog posts, I don't know if it's there just yet.
Yeah. We'll keep an eye on it then. So I mean, we've been using you guys for I think 5 or 6 years now, and although we obviously have our own dedicated writers for most of our sites, I still find us coming back to you, every so often, whether that's for content we're starting a new site. Actually, one of the first content order we ever had from you guys back in 2016, I think it was,
Wow.
into 2015. We just actually sold that site for 6 figures, and it started with a $1,500 WordAgents order. So yeah,
That is awesome.
I really admire how consistent you guys have been, because we've tried other companies in the past, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But over a period of 5 years, you guys have just been really, really consistent. And in the Authority Site System and Authority Hacker Pro, I know that you have a sort of special arrangement with our members. You have a special rate for those people, but you also wanted to give a really pretty incredible coupon code offer to people listening today. So do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, thank you for saying that. I appreciate you guys sticking with us for so long. Being consistent and reliable is actually part of our mission statement. We want to be the most reliable service out there, because that's one of the most common complaints we hear, that it's just not reliable. Outsourcing content is just not a reliable option. We want to change people's perspective about that. But yes, we're going to offer a special deal for anybody that's listening to this podcast. We're going to give you $110 off any of our packages at WordAgents. So our smallest package usually costs $120 for 1,000 words. So this coupon code is actually going to make that package $10 for you. And that'll be a good way to try us out if you're contemplating outsourcing content. Or if you have a bigger project, you can use that $110 coupon code off one of our bigger packages. And as an added bonus, if you claim the coupon code and use it within the first 7 days after the date this podcast goes live, we're going to send you an additional $110 off, just as a thank you for trying us out. Mark, I think you're going to share the coupon code in the notes.
Yeah, we'll put it on the screen now. If you're listening on the audio, I think it's $110 AH. We'll put it in the email that we send out as well. But you can check the show notes or SoundCloud, YouTube description. We'll put it all there.
For sure.
And that's valid for 7 days, 30 days?
The coupon code will be valid for 30 days after the day the podcast goes live. I believe that's July 12th. But in order to get the secondary coupon, you've got to use the first coupon within the first 7 days. So that's the little caveat there.
So they just go on to wordagents.com and sign up for the platform, and there should be a coupon code in the order space there.
Exactly. Wordagents.com. You can scroll down right on the homepage. You'll see our 4 packages. We have packages of words that range from 1,000 words all the way up to 20,000 words. And the way it works is you buy your package of words, a dashboard is created for you, and then you make article requests that kind of debit from your balance of word credits. So, just head over to wordagents.com, pick a package, and you'll be able to apply the coupon code.
And when a client's working with you, how can they get what information do they need to give you to get the best content possible? Should they be given, very detailed briefs, just give you the keyword, or where is the balance there?
We are huge fans of the Authority Hacker content briefs. So if you have that, just give us those 2-page briefs for your article. That's all that's necessary. But really, all of our clients submit briefs in their own way. Our order form, when you want to submit a request for a new article, you can upload documents. And if you aren't sure what to include, we actually have a template on there too that spells out everything that we're asking for. So it's from your title, your target keywords, secondary keywords, word length, formatting instructions, and I believe there's a few other pieces of information that you can provide that will help us along. And in worst case scenario, all the instructions are reviewed by our quality assurance team and our editors. So if we have more questions, we'll reach out to you before production starts just to get clarification to make sure that we understand what your expectations are.
Okay, great. So is there anything which I haven't asked you today, which I should have asked you?
Let's see here. I would say when it comes to building your team, teams aren't static. You want to be constantly replacing and improving your team over time. Because what happens is, writers get used to, the same process day in and day out, week in and week out. So what we do every quarter is we review, I would say, the bottom 10 to 20% of our team from a performance perspective. And we hire the same amount of new writers. And we kind of put them against each other, and we see, who performs better. And we keep the better performers and say goodbye to the ones that didn't perform that well. And approaching the team like that and constantly cycling out, the bottom quarter of your team is the way to constantly improve over time. If you do that for a few years, you're going to have a really talented team that's within your budget.
And what would you say is the biggest mistake that you've made throughout this whole journey in terms of hiring writers?
Don't assume that writers know what your expectations are. You have to be very tediously specific about that without micromanaging. You can't micromanage. You just have to set your expectations in a very clear way, as succinctly as possible. So again, I go back to whatever instructions you're providing to writers. The document is no longer than 2 pages. Any more than that is just going to be too much information, and things are going to get lost. So be concise and specific about your expectations, but don't cross that line to micromanagement, because then things kind of get all messed up.
Okay, Vin, thanks so much for coming on today. Really appreciate you sharing these insights with your business.
I really appreciate it, Mark. This was fun. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you guys enjoyed this show, and if you have a question for Vin, actually, head on over to our YouTube channel and leave us a comment. And maybe Vin, the end of the week, you can have a look through and answer some of those questions that people have in there as well.
Yeah, guys, I'll be there all week. So I love talking to you. So let me know if you have any questions, and I'll give you as detailed as a response as I can.
And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, send us all the social love that you can, and we'll see you in a couple weeks for another episode.